G'day, fans, and welcome to the first episode of Talk and Stuff. It's where we sit around and we gasbag about sci-fi things that appeal to us. And with me is my lad, Mr. Aaron. Mr. Aaron, how you going, old son?
I am absolutely blown away by that amazing intro. Lots of work went into that.
Well, it's very funny. You read about it on YouTube videos, and people say, if you got an intro video, people just don't like them. Anything more than 3 or 4 seconds is too long. So I said, fine, we won't stick one in at all, and we'll just go the absolute boring bit, get straight to the point of this entire discussion.
Do you know the biggest wank is when someone puts on the 20th Century Fox logo, an opening crawl, makes 2 or 3 minutes before they get to their pathetic video. We skip straight to the pathetic part.
I think we're discussing when Star Wars fan films were in their vogue in the early 2000s. Every single one of them had the Star Wars receding font as well as the crawl and then the music. And you go, you know what, after 5 or 6 movies, you go, I kind of a bit over it. So it's one of the reasons why, yeah, that's definitely fast forward stuff. And of course, you've got to read every single crawl and you go, do I have to? Jeepers creepers. So the funny thing is, hang on, what? Fun factoid, Doug hasn't got a hat this year. No, I haven't got a hat this time around. So there you go. But so the hat is just, for those who are wondering, just here. So it hasn't gone away. But
out of the two of us, only one of us can do the safety dance.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. You know what? It took me forever to work out they were actually representing S because I thought, what were they making that move? S for the well, anyway. So we're here to talk about sci-fi stuffs, right? It's the kind of thing we come up with this idea for the show because Aaron was keen to have a discussion about Dune Part 2. And we would do it as a DNA reviews. And I thought, well, hang on, how about we just put on a show, have a gas bag like we would normally if we were in like your shop, which we'll discuss about later, and do it that way. But we'll do it online so other people can join in and see what's going on. So here we are.
I supply the gas, and you must be the bag.
Absolutely fantastic. Got a few people have joined us already. We even got a message that occurred on screen before we even got started from somebody called Jittery Jet. They recycle about the Dune movies, or did they just adopt the books? The latter, I think. Yeah, exactly right. We'll get to Dune very, very soon. Anyway, the idea is we're going to only be here with a bit of luck only for an hour. It's a bit of a fun and jovial thing. Obviously, we encourage people to make their comments and views and thoughts as we natter along. So that's the most important thing. But the show is going to be a little bit different to what we've done in previous couple of years, actually. So how does that work for you, Mr. Aaron?
It's good. It means I don't have to make 500 pictures for every episode.
Absolutely love it. I like this one. You spaced balled the opening sequence. Oh, there you go. So, well, we could be out there combing in the desert, as you all know. So it's very good stuff. Anyway, well, we're going to be talking about sci-fi stuff and a whole lot of different range of things. And I guess, if anything, we probably should kick it off. What do you reckon, then, Mr. Aaron? Just get straight into the meat of it, or what?
Yeah, let's go for the meat and veg.
Love it. All right, here we go. All right. No expense spared. What can I say? They've got to be fast. You can't make them too long, otherwise people just tune out. So what can I say? Very, very cool. All right, so we're going to talk about some news. Now, of course, there's always sci-fi news coming out everywhere. Absolutely fantastic. And we're just going to be focusing on the latest things that are happening and occurring in the world. So one of the things that's been announced and is making an appearance on Netflix very, very soon is a Rebel Moon Part 2. Did you see Rebel Moon Part 1, dude?
I did, and to let everyone know, I don't know anything what we're talking about tonight. It's just coming out, but I've been chatting about this today. Did you know Rebel Moon Part 1 is being reissued in a totally uncut form, which doesn't make any sense because it was released on Netflix, so they could have done that in the first part. So Rebel Moon Part 1, the Snyder Cut, is coming back with all the sex and all the blood and gore put back in just after Rebel Moon Part 2 comes out. And then Rebel Moon Part 2 is coming out in a second version with all the sex and all the blood and guts put in as well. What's the deal with that?
I guess it means that people are going to have to go back and rewatch it. Now, I just got a question from Rusky Bubs. I did like this one, actually. Is Aaron wearing a space shirt or did he have a really bad sneeze? Oh, goodness. Oh, so they're reissuing it again. Maybe they felt that they didn't get enough viewers the first time around. They said, all right, let's some of the really juicy stuff back in, and people will be forced to watch it a second time. It makes the viewing numbers look really, really good. So,
yeah. Did you watch the first part?
I did, and I know, not particular. I didn't. I do know its history was I can't remember the guy who created it. He was going to try and pitch it as a Star Wars thing, hence probably the word rebel. And it didn't get through, so they just did it as an independent. I like the production design. I liked the way it looked and all the rest of it. But of course, it had that seven samurai feel about it, or as some people have said, the Battle Beyond the Stars feel about it. And I got to admit, I was halfway through it, and I go, you know what? It's just not working for me at all. My buttons weren't pushed, fans. I need pushed buttons. What can I say?
I can push your buttons, Dags.
I'll tell you what, who's just pushing my buttons. Good old the Tashta is joined us. Bring on the nerdy onslaught. Little dudes spanking and the lovely Lynn are all tuning in. That's my other half. Absolutely fantastic. Well, ladies and gents, if you want to leave some absolutely fantastic comments, that'd be cool. But yep.
Fantastic to know my other half, Tennille, won't be touching this show with a 30-foot barge pole.
Well, there you go. So, dude, I don't like touching your barge pole the best of the time, so we'll just leave it at that, shall we? Anyway, so Rebel Moon Part 2 is coming out. I know they want to try and make an entire franchise out of this thing. I wish them all the best, but after the first episode, I go, you know what? It was just a little bit too predictable, too ordinary, but I did like the way it looks, and I thought, oh, well, yeah, fair enough. So each to their own. I'm sure there'll be some people out there going, oh, my God, it's the greatest thing ever. So be curious to see if it's got sustainability and it will last down the track, or whether it just dies a death. So there you go. I like this one. There are those who believe that life here started on Oh, that is absolutely fantastic. So, yeah, very, very cool. What? 30-foot? How about a 40-foot barge? Oh, dude, there we go.
Come on, Chris. You don't go sharing the size of my barge pole. I thought I pushed Dag's buttons with it, but
I tell you what, we're starting off on a nice low level, so we can only go up from here, which is not to be barge poles again. Oh my goodness gracious! All right, so that's Rebel Moon. Best of luck to it, yay team! Party, party, party. Now this one came out. Another film that's also been announced recently, and I saw the trailer. I didn't even know this was even being made, and a trailer came out for it, and I go, oh, what a great idea. And, of course, it's A Quiet Place Day One. So there have been 2 A Quiet Place movies, which have been really good. I don't remember the second one. I have seen it, but don't remember it. But I remember the first one really well. But this is where it all begins. It's a prequel thing. And I thought, what a great idea. So how's this pushing your buttons, old Mr. Aaron?
Well, the problem they've got with this is like the titles, like the Die Hard films, A Quiet Place, A Quieter Place, A Quiet Place with a Vengeance, A Quiet Place Day One. Actually saw this and did think this is really interesting because you've set up the premise and you've seen the world which is occurring after this. And I think it was really smart. In the second movie, they didn't really show the invasion, and the second movie was a success as well. And now they've gone back to this, obviously with a bigger budget for special effects. Looks like a different cast. Really looking forward to this one. What did you think?
Yeah, it worked for me. I mean, another thing with prequel movies, especially like this type, I mean, when the actual physical invasion occurs, they'll be like, that's really exciting. And then straight after that, it'll probably just have to go really quiet, literally quiet, because no one can make noises. And I think the lead character, has got hearing impairments based on what I saw in the trailer. I don't know. But yeah, it'll be curious to see how it all transpires. And it's just like a bit like World War Z. When the initial attack occurs, when things are just happening, it's probably going to be a sight for the eyes. Then afterwards, as I said, it will sort of peter down a little bit. But I certainly wish them all the best, and I think it's a great idea. It's another alien invasion movie, but if it's all based on how sound works, and you'd be curious to see how long it takes people to realise, don't make noise, that's how you stop getting knocked off. But as we know from A Quiet Place, most of the population of the Earth has been decimated. So,
yeah, in the Valley of the Death, the one-eared man is king.
Very, very good. I see, said the blind man. Just want to say hello to Carol's actually in Melbourne. So she, instead of being in Ballarat, she's actually in Melbourne for the Grand Prix. So g'day, Carol. Yay, Oscar. All the best to him. So we'll have to see how that all goes. So there you go. And it is going to be very groovy. But anyway, A Quiet Place Day One. Kind of funny because if you watch the original movie A Quiet Place, because there's so little noise in it, so little sound, you can almost like just you'd be ramping the volume up, going, "Why can't I hear anything?" Because the whole thing is meant to be really, really quiet. It's like a silent movie to a degree.
You could have the THX note at the start, and it just plays nothing.
Yeah, the audience is not listening. The audience is on mute. Yeah, I actually like that, which is very, very cool. So we'll see how that all pans out, and it should be very groovy. Now, in the interim, how's this for timing? Our first show tonight, and 2 trailers have come out for new things this week, and the first one, believe it or not, is a good old alien Romulus. So this just arrived yesterday, I think. And I tell you what, I read about it. It's set between Alien and Aliens, which I don't really understand the logic of that. But some people have said on the QT, I don't know if it was from you, that apparently the reviews of this have been quite good. So what are your thoughts, old son?
Well, I saw the trailer And being an old fart, I thought it looked too computer gamey. Um, Even the shots through it looked like when you're playing a very similar Alien Isolation game, and I think they've got the see this kind of thing. I thought this could be a computer game.
Yeah.
That said, I do like the look of it. I do like the darkness. I do like the look of the alien, and really happy to give it a chance. I'll definitely go see it. The one thing, and I think they've fallen into a really bad alien trope here. You can tell from the title, the trailer, the one person that's going to survive, because you know, in Aliens, there's always the young girl or the strong girl that survives through them. And I would like to change. I hope they change that up. I hope she gets massacred.
I thought it was so funny. The last shot, as you just said, you got the woman with the sleeveless shirt carrying the pulse rifle. I thought, hang on, we saw that. We've seen that already. Hopefully, her name's not Ellen. But yeah, it did look that part. Hopefully, that's not the end of it, because that would be just unbelievably predictable.
I want
like,
the fat guy that works in the kitchen who hides for half of the movie to save the day.
Yeah, exactly right. Like in Jurassic Park, you know, when you had Dennis and he gets eaten by a dinosaur, and you're thinking, wouldn't he survive? But funny if he's the only one who survives. So, which is very groovy. Got a question from Zach. Talking horror. Oh yes, World War Z. Absolutely loved it. I just got to say, but yes, it is good stuff for sure. But anyway, so yeah, Alien Romulus. It does come under the heading of why, but give it a go. And so far, and I agree with you, I think, okay, we're fast-moving face huggers. Yeah, we've seen that in Aliens. Oh, yeah, we've got the Ripley takeoff. We've seen that in Aliens. Hopefully, it's not a case of the same old, same old. Just because they've said it before Aliens, hopefully the story kind of works. There's got to be a reason why they've done that. So, yeah, exactly right. Very, very cool. Yes, it is good stuff. Here we go. Judy Jets joined us back again. Final girl trope. Yeah, exactly right. It seems to be the thing these days. And if they do that, then it's been there, done that plenty of times already. Yeah. So I'd sooner see aliens versus Romulans. See, that's interesting. When you think of the name Romulus, you do think of Romulans from Star Trek. So it works for me. So the other thing that came out just 2 days ago, funnily enough, back on the Star Wars front, is the Acolyte. And, of course, there's a trailer for this as well. And I've been asking people what they thought regarding the Acolyte trailer versus the Alien Romulus trailer. And of the two, even though based on what you just said, I think the Romulus trailer sort of worked out the better. What did you think of Acolyte, son?
Hated it. There was look, it's Star Wars, so it'll do well. The most exciting thing for me in this whole trailer was orange lightsabers. So that's saying something, where I kind of went through this and I was like, looks a bit boring, looks a bit pedestrian, doesn't look exciting to me at all. Look, maybe they're holding stuff back for the next trailer. For me, this does not inspire confidence that this is going to be an awesome series. What did you think?
It kind of had a slight look of, believe it or not, a fan film. And I don't know, I just found it quite ordinary. And I thought, well, okay, I'm not like sitting there going, oh my God, I just cannot wait to see this. I'm just hankering to see what they do with it. I did like the start. The only thing that really worked for me is right at the start when the Jedi Master says to the kids, you know, don't your eyes can deceive you, don't trust them, which of course is the Ben Kenobi line from A New Hope. I like that. But the rest of it, I thought, yeah, okay, I've seen it. And it's like, you know, I think this is probably at that point where we're getting a little bit saturated from all these Star Wars things. And it's hard to be impressed because, yeah, we've seen it all before. We've seen lightsabers and bad guys and fight scenes and all this sort of stuff. And Trinity's coming back from the Matrix. What's the deal with that, Mr. Aaron?
I know. Well, I think Carrie Moss is a great actress. So I do like her. So I hope she's really good. This goes back to when we were reviewing, I think it might have been the second series of The Mandalorian, or you said from now on, because it's Disney, there are always going to be kids in it. And it's always, and I saw that and I thought, well, yes, Dags was absolutely right. Every series they've slipped in, you know, except for maybe Andor, they've slipped in stuff. So it's a bit more family friendly. That is absolutely fine. Again, not the Star Wars that really inspires me. I'll watch it, of course, but we'll see how it goes.
So for those who are watching right now, Aaron and I will do an episode by episode review when it comes out in June for our DNA reviews, and we'll take it apart and have a look. Hopefully they do an Andor and make it somewhat adult, but you are right. If they involve all the kids, they'll probably have to really tone it down, which will be kind of sad. Yes, I like this one, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Jedi. It certainly looks that way too. So We wait and see. But for those who don't know, it's set 100 years before the Phantom Menace, in the era of the High Republic. So all the Jedi are around, and everybody, Yoda, all those guys are still around, and it's all very, very exciting. And we'll have to see where it all trend goes. So, what do you reckon, dude?
Well, usually, like, more Star Wars is good Star Wars. At the very worst, it'll be another series that everyone will talk about and criticize. But Star Wars trundles on.
Yeah, indeed. Oh, yeah, just what we need. Yeah, Jedi kids. Yes, exactly right. Anyway, so that's the latest that we've got for the moment. We don't want to go through too much stuff because we want to save something for next week. Now, this is kind of funny, right? When we used to do Rip It Off the Card, which is our previous show, we used to get various people on who said they like certain things and dislike certain things about sci-fi stuffs, right? This is an absolute classic. So you've got this viewer, Kelvin Wellborn, has arrived. I have arrived, right? Now, the funny thing about that is that we're about to talk about Dune. So, part two, and I think Kelvin always used to leave us whenever Dune came up. So, sorry, Kelvin, you may have arrived, but you might be departing very, very quickly straight after this.
Well, and as you said, we left it a couple of weeks to review it because we're going to be going into spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, but you love us, hang out. We're going to spoil everything for you.
That we are. All right, so Dune Part 2. And like you, I saw it 2 weeks ago. I only saw it the once, and I'm thinking, I've actually forgotten most of it. But I want you to kick this off. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I've got a lot of respect for it. It's all great and wonderful. But I've got a few pictures I can chuck up. But how do you want to kick this off, old son? Dune Part 2. How did it work for you?
Well, the thing is, I think it works more as a whole, as a massive picture. I think Dags and I both liked, but were a little bit disappointed by Dune Part 1. Would that be accurate to say? It was good, but anyway, I thought this made Dune Part 1 better. And now I've seen the whole thing. I think the problem with doing any adaptation of Dune is the book is such a intricate book on so many different levels, you can't do it. The TV series tried to do it by having Baron Harkonnen speak to the audience, having soliloquies so you could understand what was happening. And you've had other, like the David Lynch version of Dune, where you've had massive info dumps through different characters. This is probably my favorite version of Dune, presenting as much as they can from the book and the intricacies of the Bene Gesserit plots. Unfortunately, some of the stuff's been totally dumped as well. You've got the whole Spice Navigators is hardly been spoken about. Visually, I could not fault this version of Dune. I would see it on the biggest screen you can. Arrakis looks amazing. It looks harsh and an alien planet. It's upped the ante from the last one with a lot more intricate fights and, I guess, well-staged special effects. I thought the story wrapped up the first half really well. In fact, I didn't like where the first half ended off, and I thought that was a bit disappointing. But the way they've done it, it now feels like, because there's a break, that he has been on the planet for a long time and he has, like, learnt the ways of the desert. So I actually now enjoy where the break is. What did you think?
It's kind of interesting. I actually like Part 1. I thought they did a good job with it. I mean, as we've sort of covered off before, the production design of both movies is fantastic. You really can't fault it from that level. There's maybe a couple of small bits you can go, oh, yeah, maybe in another time and place they could have done things differently. Like with the Emperor, he's the Emperor of the known universe. He's just dressed in like a bathrobe, effectively. I thought, yeah, could have added a bit more pizzazz and regalia to that. But I still know of people who still found the story convoluted and difficult to follow. And it really does come under the heading of people who need to read the book first if they really want to grasp all of it, because there are 6 different factions within the entire story. Most movies only have 3, which is the good guys, the bad guys, and some in the middle. And of course, in Dune, there's 6. So it worked for me. I enjoyed it. I got a lot out of it. As you know, I'm a huge fan of the 1984 movie, and that will never change. So all power to them. I think it's great and wonderful. But there's not a lot I could fault with it. But when I sat and analysed, I go, oh, okay, there are aspects of the 1984 which I thought were better. But overall, I thought this actually worked out quite well. And I agree with you. Visually, it was just it was great. And because they had more time to spend on it, that really, really worked. The one thing that I think really sort of like was very successful is how they pushed the Middle Eastern side with the Fremen, which they didn't do in the 84 movie. I thought that was good because in the original books, that was the case. So there was definitely a lot of instances where they referred to the books as reference, and they were able to put it into the film itself. So, yeah, it was actually
And
really good in that regard.
the Fremen are obviously very sympathetic, which could be controversial in the world which we live in at the moment. But I agree with you on some of the things. Like if you've got Christopher Walken in a movie, I did want to see him doing more. And then I think Florence Pugh was underused as the Empress. I mean, she didn't have a huge role in the book. And then Anna Taylor-Joy turns up as a vision for what's probably going to happen in the next movie. So they made some interesting choices. I could not fault the cast. I thought everyone was amazing in the roles, apart from, like you said, Christopher Walken was maybe a little bit underwhelming as the Emperor.
Yeah, I don't know why they went down that route, and I'm not sure how that worked in the book. But in the books, they had the golden lion throne, so they really talked it up as being a bit of a big deal. So I kind of felt that was rather surprising and disappointing. It could have been effectively anybody. The one thing I thought was a really interesting twist from what we'd seen in the previous movies and any of the iterations was how the Harkonnens, even though they pronounce them Harkonnen, which I don't get, but the Harkonnens were represented with the whole really, really pale look. Everything is in black and white. I don't think they even have any like teeth or anything like that. So I thought that was really interesting, and of course this is Fade Ralther, and that was his first appearance in the whole story. So that kind of worked. It's mentioned in the movie that they have a black sun, and I kind of didn't really get that. I thought the idea was that Gedi Prime was supposed to be just heavily industrialized, but if it works, it works. I mean, it's kind of funny. Everybody looks identical, so with all the whole bald heads and the pale complexion. So yeah,
I actually thought that section was really great because it was such a contrast to the harsh light on Arrakis, and you go to a planet where there's black light. I mean, it's science fiction, it's not like scientific at all, but I did love the whole society. I did like that somewhere, when you see Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, they have people working out every sort of race and all their cultures and traditions and how they look. This obviously happened on Dune as well, because you go there and everything stylistically is different. They have fireworks that look like oil bursting in the sky, which I've never seen before. And I always like when they show something I've never seen before. And there was a lot of symbolism through the whole movie as well. And I'm sure if you watch it a few times, stuff will appear. The one criticism, it isn't a criticism because it looks cool, it's just a shot that kind of got used a few times. Boy, does he like a single figure walking out of the dust storm into the camera. That happened about 4 or 5 times, which is great for the trailer, but when a movie's that long, I'm like, I've seen this a couple of times before now.
Yeah, it's the Lawrence of Arabia look, isn't it? I like this one from Joe. The only disappointment was the lack of Atreides battle pugs. I don't know why they put pugs in the first movie, but anyway. And of course, from a design thing, of course, you got the sandworms, right? And look, worms are never easy to design at the best of times, and I think this is like inspired from the books. But all things being equal, they do look like giant rectums, which you can't get away from that. So the first movie, the 84 movie, they look like giant phallic symbols. And now these, it's just there's no escaping it. You just can't get around it. And I think, what do you do? What do you do? So you just got to
imagine if the Harkonnens had rolled out giant Combantrum pills to kill the worms.
Unbelievable. So, but other things work really well. Like the ornithopters were absolutely fantastic, and some of the fight scenes and the visual effects, as I said, look really groovy. The Baron. It's a 50-50 one on the Baron compared to Kenneth Macmillan's version from 84. It kind of worked and kind of didn't. It just wasn't as threatening as it could have been. But if you'd never seen the 84 movie or you didn't really care, I guess this one worked successfully. So, yeah.
I do like the original Baron better, but the original Baron was obviously more camp and over the top. That whole movie was, I guess, it was in a different gear to this movie. Talking about the fight scenes, I did think when Gurney came back, they dispatched of what's his name, a bit too fast. I thought there would be a bigger, Batista as the other.
Beast Raban.
Raban. I did think he went out like after such a big build up. I did think, he's gone a bit quicker than I thought he would go.
Well, one of the things they did change, and this one I kind of had me scratching my head, is like in the book, Alia is actually born throughout the book, and she's like a little child, and of course she has all the powers of her Reverend Mother, which is covered off in the 84 movie, and it's actually she who kills the Baron Harkonnen, because she's obviously the granddaughter or whatever the term is, and for this, I mean, aside from the one vision of Alia, I mean, in the end, the Harkonnen, the Baron was killed by somebody else. You go, I wonder why they changed that. Unless they thought they had too many characters, it was going to be too difficult. But Alia being born as a powerful Reverend Mother, being a little kid, was actually quite significant. So I'm not entirely sure what the theory was behind that.
I really liked that she was so powerful and had such a big connection from, the water of life, that she was communicating to everyone from the womb telepathically. I thought that was pretty
Yeah.
cool. And maybe they did it the way they did because it was a story arc, the way that the Baron was killed by a character they already knew. And if they had had the little girl come and do it, it would have been cool. But it was obviously, he had screwed over the family, and it was a story arc that then they came and killed him in the way that they did. What did you think of the Emperor's ship being a giant Pokeball? I can't get away from Pokemon Go, and then we're sitting in the cinema and a Pokeball descends from space.
Oh, goodness gracious, man. That is actually very, very, very funny. One of the things I had to laugh, I mean, at this production, at the movie, both movies, despite the huge budget and the change of concepts and all the rest, and they go, oh, it's absolutely spectacular. They're doing some really, really unique and original things. They still had to copy the 1984 movie regarding the nose plugs for the Fremen, because in the books, the Fremen wore complete hoods because all this moisture just gets evaporated through the face. And of course, if you're sweating, you're losing all this moisture. But the problem they discovered in the 1984 movie is that if you put hoods on everybody, nobody knows who the characters are.
Who's who. Yeah.
So who's who in the zoo? So at the very least, if you had hoods that were transparent, you could probably get away with it. But even in this movie, they go, you know what, we're just going to have to do the nose plug thing. I mean, what moisture do you lose through your nose anyway? So I don't know. This is a homage to the 84 movie.
I would be more concerned about learning the secrets of the Fremen hair plugs.
Jeepers creepers. But look, in the grand scheme of things, it's spectacular. It's done really well at the box office, got a lot of awards. They are talking of a sequel. They're going to Dune Messiah. Interesting to see how that all sort of pans out. There were things they did cut corners on, and they just bypassed clearly, so the audience wouldn't be just bombarded with all this stuff, because the Dune universe has a lot in it. And it's kind of funny because, sorry, go on. You go first.
They've definitely left the whole Space Guild and stuff for another movie. And I did think the end was very begun the Clone Wars has as space. I was actually thinking, oh, I really hope this doesn't end now. And it did. So I am looking forward to another one if they do make it. It is very rare for such a sort of pure science fiction movie to do so well at the cinema with a general audience. So he's done very well in that respect. And I do hope they make another one. I definitely think, the films it's been a step up for me. So I'd be really interested to see where it goes from here.
Very cool. Spankin has asked, is it closer to the book, the original? Yes and no. So there are a few changes, but for the most part, both movies, the 84 movie and the new movie, follow the same literary sort of counterparts, except the 84 movie, The Weeding Way, which is not even referenced in this movie at all, movies, not even mentioned at all, is a key part of the book. The Weeding Way is a special fighting style, which of course in the 84 movie they turned into weapons with sound. So there was a few things they just dropped completely from the reference in the novels. And I go, yeah, okay, I kind of get it. But if you're a bit of a completist and you go, well, how come there was no references to Canley and there was no references to the Landsrad? And the little things you go, as a fan, you go, oh, that's really cool. But they just bypass some of these terms just to simplify it. So, yeah, I get it. So,
what I thought was funny, in the original movie, they didn't do it. In this movie, they did how you walk in a special pattern to not attract the worms. And I'd always wondered how that was. And it looks like you're staggering around drunk. And it actually reminded me of the movie Yellowbeard, where he's looking for his treasure, going stagger, stagger, fall over, step to the right, stagger, stagger, walk, walk, walk.
As you've pointed out with movies and TV shows before, they'll introduce something that you must follow to ensure that you get the result that you want, and then straight away it just gets forgotten. And I think in part one they got told walk without rhythm, and straight away they just walk normal. Walk normally and go, didn't you pay attention? So in this version, they at least made a point of doing it differently. Although I have seen a picture that someone posted online about saying you've got to walk with that rhythm or whatever, and they got a picture of John Cleese doing the Ministry of Silly Walks. I was
going to say, all the white guys would be fine because no white guys have rhythm.
Yeah, well, exactly right. Russell liked this. Aaron Harkonnen. I like that. That actually works for you, old son. So you're heading in the right direction.
My baths just look
Dear.
oily after I get out of them, not when I get in.
Yeah. So I just thought it was funny. The film came out, and I think on the same day that I saw it, the 84 movie was on TV that night. And I thought, oh, well, there you go. And there's still a place for the 84 movie. If my recommendation would be to people watch the part one and part two of the new movies, go back on the 84 movie. At least you'll understand the story with a bit of luck and just
Yeah.
make some comparisons, allowing for the fact it's a lot shorter. I mean, it's like nearly 3 hours shorter. And of course, it's a 1984 budget and special effects. So there you go. Here we go. Here we go. Walk with that rhythm and it won't affect the worm. Fatboy Slim used it in a song. Oh, well, there you go. So
There you go.
no.
I just imagine then the safety dance with that guy, the midget, and the hippie girl, and the worm just coming up and eating them all.
Absolutely love it. I like this. Walk like a frem Egyptian. You would have spent ages just typing out that. So, but if you haven't seen it and you're into Dune, I mean, I think everybody has seen it by now. But I suggest all power to them. It is an
Yeah.
excellent version, and we'll have to see where it all goes from here. So, good stuff. Anything you want to finally finish up with regarding the what do you call it? The Dune Part 2 movie?
Here's something that'll save you some time. If you wait all the way to the end of the credits that go for about 10 minutes, there is no extra scene, so you can leave.
Love it. Yes, exactly right. Just quickly, this is regarding responding to Spankin's comment. The 84 movie is meant to be close, but they made a Lynch cut of it. Yeah, well, in the end, back in those days, long movies weren't really the go, except for maybe Dances with Wolves or whatever, because they wanted to get all the sessions squeezed in as much as possible. These days, 3-hour movies are almost the norm. So, and of course, with Dune, this version is 2 parts, so it's almost like 5 hours, 5.5 hours, which is good. They had more time to play with it, which is very, very groovy. So good stuff. Have you seen the 84 Space Diver cut? No, I have not. So there you go. And I agree with Joe. Yeah, definitely see it in a cinema. It is actually very spectacular. Good stuff. Anyway, that's our look at Dune Part Deux. And yes, if you haven't done so, be sure to check it out. All right, now we're going to introduce a new segment. Aaron doesn't even know what this is. All right. This is something very, very cool. I only thought of it the other day. It's this.
A question.
I'm going to ask Aaron a question, and he doesn't know what it is. Okay, and this is actually a bit of a serious one, actually. So Aaron's a bit of a knowledgeable dude and everything, because as people may or may not know, he runs his own collectible store in Australia and is dealing with pop culture things all the time. So I've got a question for you, and be curious to see what your thoughts are. So, will there ever come a time when DC films become the dominant comic book movie franchise as Marvel falters? What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. But that's not because I think Marvel are doing, never going to be on top again. I don't think they've released as many good films. After they got to Infinity War, I didn't think they could top it. And then they kind of did Spider-Man with the other company's Spider-Man. I thought, well, they managed to top it because they've done multiverse, but where do they go from now? But the thing is, it isn't because, they're doing badly. It's just because you're always going to have a wheel going around where DC probably have come off one of their worst runs. It looked like it was starting well, and they looked like they had a plan going when they had Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman, but the wheels fell off really, really quick. But Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and those characters are so popular, and they're so ingrained, not with the movie audiences that have seen them in the last decade, but fans that have loved Batman their entire life. Of course, they're going to come back. Of course, at some point in time, it might not even be with the new iteration of DC. It might be in 20 years' time. There will be new DC movies that are the best comic book movie they've ever made. And then Marvel will come back with the best comic book movie they've ever made. So that's an easy question, because yes, at some point, DC will make the greatest Superman movie ever that might surpass the Christopher Reeve version, or the greatest Batman movie ever that might surpass the Michael Keaton version. And you will get a new Iron Man movie at some point that will be better than the Robert Downey Jr. version. So is that a good enough answer?
I liked how you said it may not happen for a decade or two, because I think a lot of people are expecting something to happen like tomorrow. And at the moment, what I was thinking is that the Marvel juggernaut over the past decade has just been unsurmountable. They've just done really well. But yet, the past 4 or 5 years, they've struggled. And yet, the DC side has been struggling a lot ever since the Batman Begins trilogy. And of course, they were on, I think, even before the Marvel movie started. So it's at a point where both of them are sort of struggling to find their way. But I agree with you. I think if you've got the Batman and Superman properties, which all things being equal in terms of superhero iconicism, if there's such a word, being iconic legends, they outstrip everybody.
Yeah.
And all they need is the right property to make it work. It's just a question of who's going to do it, when they're going to do it, and how long it takes, and whether people are prepared to wait that long. So I tend to agree with you. I would think that it has the potential to happen, but it's not going to happen for a while. Might be a long while. So yeah.
I do think if superhero movies, not just Marvel or DC, go out of vogue because they end up costing X amount of dollars and they're not making the money back, and there is, you know, a break where, you know, smaller dramas or comedies, you know, make the majority of movies. I do think even if it's like I was saying, a decade from now, someone will have the bright idea of going, okay, Batman's time to come back.
Because as we know from history, after Batman and Robin in 1997, they waited almost 10 years before they started doing the Batman Begins. So maybe they just have to wait a while, as opposed to what's happening currently, where they're just constantly recasting and rechurning out the new stuff. Ads has said that Wonder Woman is the only DC movie that has been any good in the past 10 years from DC. I think that's a fair call. The thing about what we're asking is whether not just one spike of a hit and back down again, it actually they climb back up. So you see how Superman was in the late 70s, early 80s, and how Batman was in the late 80s, early 90s. Marvel wasn't like anywhere to be seen, and now of course they are there. And it would be interesting to see if the studios and the producers can all hang it out for X amount of years and go, you know what, let everything rest, stop recasting, remaking, recreating, which is what we're going to be discussing very, very soon, and let the property lie low for a while.
The thing is, this might be controversial for me to say. I really loved the Suicide Squad, so the second Suicide Squad movie. I really loved the Peacemaker TV series. And James Gunn, who was behind both of those, is actually now in charge of the DC universe. And I don't think he's the right person, because the movies he does really well, like Guardians of the Galaxies, are quirky and have quirky characters, and that's why it worked really well with Suicide Squad. And if you look at his career, he's made a career of these quirky characters and quirky movies that are great. Doing that with Superman, he really has to change gears and change his style, or I don't think it's going to work. I mean, it's a great experiment to see if it does. Like, I thought Snyder could have pulled it off, and the studio totally undermined him. The Snyder cut was much better than what we got in the cinemas, but it still wasn't the greatest thing ever. It was still just, I thought it was good. It was good to great, not amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting because I thought, well, like, we've had discussions with customers in your store, and when it comes to Superman and Batman, people still refer to Christopher Reeve and Michael Keaton after all these decades, after all these reiterations and recreations and whatever else. You do wonder if somebody will eventually say, let's get Superman back wearing the traditional comic book costume, right, without all the fancy stuff that he's currently got. Put Batman in something a bit more traditional, and just redo it all again. And as Ed said about Batman, another Origins movie, it'd be painful to have to do another one. But as Rusky Babe said, it hasn't happened before and it can happen again. So it's just the wheel being reinvented. And it would be curious to see whether DC can find its place to the point where they say, you know, we're on an upward trajectory after decades of just being in the doldrums. And Marvel are floundering, which is almost impossible to think of. I mean, you wind back the clock, say 6 or 7 years ago, Marvel were just on this like stratosphere. And you think, mate, they're cooking on gas for the next 100 years. But of course, that's not necessarily the case. But
you can't. I think with any franchise or anything, you can't sustain that high quality forever, because there's fatigue and burnout. I did really love, and maybe it was because I had low expectations, the Batman with Robert Pattinson, a much more pared back, down to earth Batman who was more of a detective than the go in and beat 'em up fighter. So I thought that was good. Batman definitely haven't gone away. Batman, like in pop culture for me over the past couple of decades, Batman was always the number one seller. So you had the 80s Batman, all good, even the movies that didn't do so great. Then you had the reinvention with Batman Begins and Christian Bale, number one seller. Spider-Man took over from Batman. So even before this sort of version of Marvel DC, Spider-Man did take over as the most popular character. And then when Star Wars came back, Star Wars went to number one and it has stayed there. And no matter what has happened since then, Star Wars, for better or for worse, does sell more in my shop than Batman, Marvel, DC. They're all popular, but Star Wars is number one. And probably to your horror, Doctor Who is right up there too.
Oh, no, that's okay. I don't mind about the whole Docky Who thing. So, yeah, it's an interesting one to watch this space. As I said, it's one thing to have a hit movie, but we're talking about, as you mentioned, the big word sustainability is something I've always said. I always thought that Marvel pumped out too many too quickly in the 2010s, 2 or 3 a year. They just eventually just ran out of steam. Maybe in retrospect, they needed to slow it down. But, hey, it is all good. But, so the answer to the question is yes, you do believe that DC will come back. It may take some time. But I would think that you're on the right track. Yeah.
The thing that Marvel has done where they've caught up on DC, everyone knew who all the DC characters were for a long time. And not a lot of people beyond Spider-Man would know who Tony Stark was but now everybody knows the Marvel characters, as popular as the DC characters. So Marvel definitely has caught up from being a long way behind.
Oh, absolutely. No denying that whatsoever. Just quickly, Ad said DC needs to lighten up. It's always dark and brooding. Yep. And Marvel, he's talking about raccoon and tree, amazing color. Yeah, exactly right. So they're a completely different mindset. So, but we shall watch this space. Now, there's an interesting comment that's come up here. So we're just going to wrap that one up. So we've got the answer to that question. If anybody wants to submit a question without warning, just send it to me and I'll ask the lad next week and we'll see what happens. Is there any word on the remake of the Black Hole they hinted at in the Tron movie? Well, it's very funny you should mention that because our next discussion is actually about remaking classic movies. And I know we've got like TV shots in the background there. Just ignore that. Is there any originality left? That's bad English. Is there any originality left? And I know this is something you're sort of keen to natter about because even today I discovered, and to almost my horror, that there's actually talk about making or remaking Escape from New York. And it seems to be the go. And of course, I just realized Tron was a remake. So what do you reckon, dude?
It is one of those things, I talk about a lot of stuff in the shop, but one of the things that really gets me is there doesn't seem to be an avenue in Hollywood anymore for original movies. And I don't know if that's how the system is set up because the money makers, if you've got an existing franchise or you remake something that's been made before, they think there's a built-in audience or that there just aren't enough new scripts that they think are going to take off. But one of the things I used to love going to the cinema growing up, you would see stuff based on franchises like Ghostbusters, like Batman, and all these other movies. But you would see these movies that I don't think would even get made now that came out in between these movies. So you'd have like Mystery Men or any of the Total Recall and things like that, which aren't based on any pre-existing franchise. They might be based on stories. Would Blade Runner be made now? Would Blade Runner, the sequel, have been made if there wasn't an original Blade Runner that they're, getting the nostalgia dollar out of? Would Dune be made? Maybe that one would be. But the thing that got me, I read an interview once where Steven Spielberg and Peter Jackson were having trouble getting the Tintin movie made. And it was because the American studios said, no one in America knows who Tintin is. No one's going to go and see it. So if that's the attitude, if you're making a movie that is just based on an original idea, no one knows that characters or where that comes from. So how do new movies get developed and why are we so reliant on like rehashing old stuff? And I mean, we look more at the genre stuff, but do we really need Roadhouse and Footloose and movies like that to be remade? Do we need Fright Night? And can't they make a really cool original vampire movie that isn't, a remake of an 80s one that's kind of got a cult following?
It's a good point. Now, first things first, I'm going to get you to move a bit to your right. You're off center for my camera. If you wouldn't mind, thank you, sir. Yeah, there's definitely a school of thought to say that from a movie house point of view, to say, well, these franchises have been successful in the past, we'll just stick with them and just remake them over and over again, as opposed to taking a brand new original idea and taking the risk, because movies cost that much money to make. If they tank, then it's not going to be a good look. But you are right, it's a cheat's way out. And I read an article today where almost the very first line said, oh, Hollywood is just so big into remakes and reimaginings and whatever the third word is, that it's almost becoming tiresome now. It's kind of ironic, though, that in the history of Hollywood, remakes have been occurring quite a lot. So, for example, films that got made in the silent era, got made in the black and white era, got made in the color era, got made in the sound era. It's just crazy. But I agree with you. There are certainly some you'd be scratching your head, go, what is the point of that? And as we've seen historically, there are a lot that get remade that suck. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is RoboCop. The original RoboCop in '87 was fantastic. They remake it, was 5 or 6 years ago, and you go, what was the point of that? So
well, like
you do wonder. It's a very good point.
They remade Total Recall, and it sucked.
Well, I disagree with that one. I disagree with, because I really loved Total Recall, and I really liked it because it was so different from the 1990 movie, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. They made enough changes to say, well, it's not a direct copy for the story, because the whole thing with the Mars is missing. The structure of the Earth is completely missing. Only the memory thing is the same. So I liked what they did with Total Recall, because it was different enough to say, you know what, they could have changed the name maybe and just used another name. That may have helped. But I actually personally like the remake of Total Recall. But there are other films that get remade and you go, why did you bother? And I think it comes down to the moment they say they're going to do a remake of whatever, if the audience's reaction, the fans' reaction is, oh, no, why? That's not a good sign. If the audience is saying, oh, that's a great idea, that'd look really good done with modern technology, with modern ideology, be great. But most people just groan when they hear about things being remade. And there was a comment here from Karen saying no more Indiana Jones movies. And that's a classic example of something that's getting a sequel, a remake, whatever, and people just thinking, oh, geez, I hope it does well. And, of course, they just don't. And historically, they just don't last very well at all.
Well, I would be much more sympathetic to remakes if more of them were better than the originals. But can you on hand, like, think of 5 remakes that are actually better than the originals? There aren't many.
Yeah, remakes are a hard one. I like the remake of War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise. I thought that was outstanding. Total Recall, as I just mentioned, I thought was really good. I'd have to sit and think about it. For the most part, I agree with you. There's some that you go, most of them are terrible. Like Day the Earth Stood Still. Why did you bother doing that? Journey to the Center of the Earth, The Time Machine, films like that. And you go, you know what? Even though the original might have been made 70 years ago, it's still far more preferable than producing something that's in the modern setting. So,
and the other thing that
some things need to be left alone. Sorry, go on.
The other term that has, only been around for the last 10 years, I guess, is soft reboot. When they decide they want to remake something, but they want to actually keep the original, the original fans happy. So they make it a sequel of types. The Ghostbusters would be a fantastic example, where you take an old franchise, you remake it basically, but you add a couple of the old characters just to say, hey, this isn't a remake, this is just a continuation 20 years later, kind of thing. And again, I think that's a bit of a cheat. Make a new movie, or make something that has a bit more originality than trading on nostalgia for 40, 50-year-old somethings that are going to go.
So one thing that does work is that some sequels that are set decades after the original do work. So we're talking about Blade Runner 2049 as a sequel, because it was a sequel, continued the story, and was very successful from that perspective. And of course, the one that all of us adore was Tron Legacy, which also did the same thing. So when you get movies like that, the A-Team, and of course they did the prequel to The Thing back in 2011, which was a prequel to the 1982 movie. The A-Team, all good. But I totally agree with you. When it's sort of like touchy-feely, it's kind of rebooting, it's kind of not. And you sit there and you just scratch your head as to what their mindset was. I like this one from William. They couldn't remake Barbarella. If they did, it would be very interesting to see what they would come up with. And I think a Barbarella remake would work, but it would probably get an R rating. That's the downside.
Did you know they were actually trying to remake Barbarella, and it was Drew Barrymore that wanted to be Barrett, and she was the one championing it, and it went into development hell, and then it sort of petered out. So they have actually tried to remake Barbarella. I do think now it would be totally, well, more
Yeah.
PC.
Yeah, because Barbarella is so sexual orientated, and Barbarella, the character, is so sexually flirtatious. There'd probably a lot of people up in arms over it. Probably wouldn't be worth all the hassle and the concern. I mean, there's probably a lot of people today watch Barbarella and go, have warnings at the front. Be a warning. This is like not like good for women, and and there's exploitation and blah 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 blah. Chrissy has said there could be an announcement that Neverending Story is being remade. See, that's what I don't understand. And you can almost bet your bottom dollar. Visual effects wise, it probably is spectacular. Do you need it? No. Would it work? Probably not. It's a bit of a thing. Adam agrees with me. The Total Recall remake was way better. To be fair, I mean, the two movies they're very different. The original movie was a lot more light-hearted, comedical, if you will, whereas the remake was a lot more serious. So they're for different audiences to
Well, I think
look at it from that perspective.
Chad was telling me a day or two ago they're remaking The Running Man.
Yeah, I don't know. Is somebody, why? Because somebody has said, "Oh, Arnie movies always win. They were huge box office successes back in the 80s and the 90s." Mate, just replace him with somebody else and just make it all over again. I don't know, but I don't know. There was a question here. I agree. William said the remake of Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd sort of, I think it worked because the original Stallone version kind of wasn't a good starting point. It's when the first movie is that good, and you go, you know what, you can't improve on it. Just don't bother. It's when people say, oh, no, we can do something differently. But if the original movie was really quite poor or disappointing, then there's room for improvement. It's a different thing. I don't know what you think about that.
I liked the remake of Judge Dredd. The first one was more like the 2000 AD comic books. The newer one was more a harder, gritty version. So I guess when they do that, like that was the other question I was going to pose. When you do a remake, do you try and pay homage to the original to keep the fans happy, or do you bin the original and make it totally different? Which
Well,
way
you
do you
can't win
go?
sometimes, can you? Because some people get a bit antsy. Go, oh my god, there's fan service in this. It depends on what the thing is. I mean, in the Total Recall movie, you had the lady doing the 2 weeks thing. It's like, oh, that's actually very clever. It's just a throwaway gag. It's all right. Yet, if you look in Rogue One, I think Cassian Andor runs into the two guys from the cantina of the original movie. The guy gets his arm cut off, and people crack the shits over that. And go, oh my god, that's just fan service. They go, but that works. It was okay. I don't know. It depends on the thing. I think it's not a bad idea. You can, just keep people happy.
What about the thing with, I guess, remakes and sequels is they've got to always up the ante from the original, and sometimes you just can't. Like making sequels for Jaws, you can't make it any better than the original. One that's coming out soon, Twister 2, Twisters. I mean, there were twisters in the first one. There were more than one.
So they just need to have a third version called Twisties, because as we know, life's pretty straight without them. This is an interesting for Moneybags. Force Awakens could be classed in the soft category reboot. Yes, I think it probably could. I don't think so, but it can be because of it copied a lot of the original movie's successes. And it could. That's each their own scenario. Guy agrees. Tron Legacy was one of the best sequels of all time, and it was absolutely fantastic. So there is, as we said, plenty of room for sequels, but the whole rebooting, remaking, reimagining, whatever, those 3 words, just horrible. Reboot, reimagine, remaking. And it's like, we saw it all with the Terminator movies, with Genesis, and then Dark Fate, and it destroyed a franchise that was going gangbusters back in the 80s, early 90s. And it's like, you almost want to look at these people and go, what did you do? You've just ruined what could not be ruined.
I think one of the best things ever, I think Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis have a deal with the studio that they can never remake and they can never do sequels to the Back to the Future trilogy, which is good because they could probably mine that for money, but they've got the integrity to say it'll never be better than those 3. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, good point. I like this one from Russell. Running Man is almost close to real TV now with all the social media videos, and that's a good point. Actually, there's a lot of dark stuff on the internet these days you can find. So very good. Hang on, I've got to say, Spanking has said I've got to say hello to the little dude so he can go to bed. Little dude, go to bed. All right, and I've been teaching the little dude, even though he's never really learned it, the Close Encounters thing. I've been doing it since he was born, right? And he still can't. He did it once. He did like this. And then he did that, and I go, well, that's not too bad. So there you go.
That's slurps, isn't it?
You're in trouble now. Unbelievable. So, but yes, unfortunately, the downside is reimaginings, reboots, remakings, whatever, are going to be around forever. They're not going anywhere anytime soon, which is really disappointing. Yet, as we said, a lot of remakes were actually remakes from previous movies from back in the dark ages. We'll have to wait and see. I work on the view that if something's being remade and you are against it, just don't watch it. Just bypass it completely. So if they were to do a remake of Forbidden Planet, I'd be going, no, I'm going to leave that one alone. Let someone else watch it. And unless reports are saying it's excellent, for the most part, I'd say no, I'll give that a miss.
Well, I guess it'd work in reverse if you didn't take classics, but if you took B-grade movies like them or something and then gave it a huge budget and like did amazing special effects and Hollywood actors, that might work.
So Attack of the Crab Monsters could actually be in line for a reboot. I absolutely love that.
Space Brains.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's actually a movie they made in the 1950s into the 60s called "They Saved Hitler's Brain." I've got 2 copies of it, by the way, for those who are interested. There you go. Or do a nice juicy remake of Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. Absolutely fantastic. Anders said, "Yeah, leave Back to the Future alone." I agree. It's a trilogy that is absolutely perfect. Do not touch it. And yes, exactly right. The moment they say, "Oh, we'll extend the story to a 4th movie," we've seen what they did with Matrix. Don't do it. Yes, exactly. I like that. They did a remake of them. It was called Aliens. Oh, very, very good. So, yes, good stuff. So what do you reckon then, Mr. Aaron? Very exciting times ahead, yes?
Absolutely. Plenty of reboots, remakes, and soft reboots as well.
Indeedy doody didy. Make a remake of the Farm movie Plan 9. No, Plan 9 from Outer Space does not need to be. You couldn't remake it because if you did, you'd make it a good movie, and it's not meant to be a good movie.
There is a sequel, Plan 10.
Indeed, there is. Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, I remember somebody once saying, "Oh, if I wanted to watch this film, which was like it was modern day movie, but it was done like a 1950s sci-fi movie, black and white with UFOs and whatever." And I go, if I want to watch one of those, I'll watch the real thing. Why would I want to watch a 2015 version of that? As said, there was talk about doing a sequel. Yes, I did hear that about doing a sequel, Forbidden Planet. Hopefully, somebody sees the ray of light and goes, "Don't do it." Sorry, I did cut you off.
Return to the Forbidden Planet. The sequel we want to see, of course, is a deep cut. Jeff Tilley's favorite movie, The Wild Women of Wagga Wagga.
Freaking idiot. Okay, he wants the remake Life Force. Well, the coolest thing about Life Force, it featured, especially if you're my age, which I think was 15, 16, a completely naked woman who did not say a single solitary word, and she was all full frontals everywhere. The perfect movie in my eyes. She was a vampire, for those who didn't put 2 and 2 together. So there you go. Very good. Well, anyway, I think that's going to bring us to the end of our hour. I hope everybody's liked our thing of talking stuff. This is what we're about. We just get together and we just talk about sci-fi bits and pieces. And hopefully you've enjoyed us. Tell the world about us. Spread the word to say how cool we are. Before I forget, for those who don't know already, if you haven't done so already, check out the Sci-Fi Zone socials. There's stuff coming out everywhere. So, my God, this is complete madness, including the countdown of 20 to 0 of the greatest Hollywood sci-fi movies from the golden era of all time. And, of course, Mr. Aaron's store, which is absolutely fantastic. Just for our audience, give us a quick spiel as to what you got, old son.
Aaron's Collectibles, chock full of 2 levels, or soon to be open, of just about every single nerdy franchise, pop culture, comic book you could imagine. And at the moment, we are full to the gills after having a massive garage sale to try and clear stuff out. I've gone and bought more collections of really interesting stuff. So if you're looking for that perfect piece of pop culture memorabilia to fill up your space, come and take it from my space, mention the show, and I'll give you a discount.
I love it when you fall to the gills because we've got Adam Gill watching. Yeah, it's kind of hard to return to Forbidden Planet. It blew up. Yes, that was Opera Altair 4, which is very, very cool. And on that note, we're going to buzz off. We will see you next Thursday, hopefully to talk a bit more stuff, which is particularly cool. Yes. What was it? The reaction thing from Return to the Forbidden Planet.
I don't remember.
No, that's from bloody. That's from oh shit! You caught me out, man. You're freaking me out. We've got a reverse polarity. That's right. That's when you did that.
Yeah. That was a Return to the Forbidden Planet joke.
Yeah, Interosses come from this island Earth. Is exactly right. Very, very cool. All right, we're going to buzz off. We'll leave you to it. Everybody, part hard, rock on, and we'll see you next week. Okay, take care for now. Bye bye.
See you.